echoes of Marley's words died in the velvet-curtained space of the stage. He found himself standing in a pocket sewn into a curtain that hung from a rail. Sir Simon was standing in the middle of the otherwise bare stage, now back to his normal height. He was wiping away the grease paint that had aged him, and white powder fell from his hair and beard. The king was nowhere to be seen. Linton, however, was waiting at the side of the stage. "Who told you could speak?" she said. "Who said that you were allowed?" Marley threw the trailing ends of his chains out of the pocket and began to inelegantly clamber out in full dudgeon. "It won't work," he countered. "Ebenezer Scrooge will never change. He doesn't see that he's the problem." "That's not your concern, Mr. Marley," she said. I think that the little fellow might have got through to him with that dumb show," said Sir Simon. "Oh, keep out of this, Bexley Moors blusterer," shot Linton. "Well, of all the..." said Sir Simon, and turned to leave the stage. "I shall speak to my agent about this." "Be my guest," said Linton to his retreating form. "Scrooge is my concern," said Marley. "That has been made abundantly clear to me by you, Miss Linton. My fate and that of Ebenezer Scrooge are bound inextricably. And even were it not so..." "Were it not so?" mocked Clinton. "Were it not so, then what?" "Well, then, in truth, I believe I would have agreed to try and save him, given time to think on it," he returned. "But it is clear now this man is more stubborn than even I remember. The more we show him, the more we sing this blessed song at his door, the more he believes it not to be about him." Linton took the pen from her hair and ticked something off on her clipboard. "Not my problem," she said, and turned away and strode towards the corridors. Marley pursued. "But it is mine," he said as he followed her. "If Scrooge remains unaltered, then I will have to carry his chains." "Oh, whatever gave you that idea?" said Linton with a laugh. "You did! You did!" Marley was almost pop-eyed with rage. "Did I? Oh," she said. "I wore his chains. They pinned me to the floor." "Ah, props. Nothing more," she said. At that moment, Marley saw a large set of chains, very obviously made of papier-mâché, that had just been discarded in the hallway. "This whole thing has been a lie," said Marley. "No, Mr. Marley," said Linton, as she passed into another stage and took to the space with a glint of mania in her eyes. "No, this has been theatre. A lie in search of the truth," she said. "Do you really think that the man who plays the murderous Thane truly wishes to plunge a knife into the man who bars his way to the throne? Do you think that the tragic pair of lovers who take poison rather than live a life without each other taste the bitter tang of venom on their tongues, or is it just sugared water? Do you think that the mother who sees her twin boys die before her eyes every night truly feels the grief of that loss?" "Well, no, of course not," said Marley. "Then you'd be wrong," rounded Linton. "You see, that's the truth of theatre, that the lie has to be believed even by the teller of the lie. Otherwise, no one would believe it for a second." "Oh. So whatever happens to Ebenezer, the outcome won't affect me. I won't get his chains?" he asked. "Of course not," said Linton. "Your chains are your own, his are his. How could they be otherwise?" With this, he walked away to prepare the next act. Marley felt cheated. If not to save himself from more chains, then what was this whole thing in aid of? If what happened to Ebenezer Scrooge mattered not to him, Marley, then did it matter to anyone? Perhaps a change in attitude might better the lot of a handful of people, but would it change the mind of Scrooge's peers? Would every man of business, when hearing the tale of Scrooge, instantly become benevolent benefactors? Would, in 100 years' time, say, Parliament and the halls of power be filled with those who thought only of others' betterment, all because of the redemption of one man? Or would this all be regarded as a quaint story, a mere Christmas bagatelle? If so, then why should Scrooge get such an easy passage? As Marley stood there seething, he fancied that he saw, in a dim blue light at the corner of the stage, the figure of the king. Unrevenged, the others had called him. Well, Marley vowed to himself that he would not bear a similar title, and he strode towards Linton. She was talking to an old man holding a scythe. They stood in front of a set on some kind of turntable that allowed different aspects of it to face the audience at any one time. "Oh, this is not the part that I was looking for," said the man, and he swooped a hand in front of Linton's face. "You try those tricks on me again, old man, and you'll get a knee to the knackers," said Linton. The man was dressed head to foot in a long brown cloak, hood pulled back and down to reveal a careworn but kindly face. Grey hair and a beard, his blue eyes twinkled mischievously at Linton's reply. Excuse me, he's not going," stated Marley. "What?" said Linton. "He's not going," Marley repeated. "Stop getting in the way," said Linton. "This finale is going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it." "Oh, yes, I know that, but I'm going to do it. Damned as I am, I'll be further damned if Ebenezer is going to have some actor howling him into his ever after. This is personal. Give me that robe." And so saying, he grabbed the sleeve of the old man's cloak. "If you strike me down," began the shade, and Marley tugged at the cuff. The garment fell to the floor, empty. The scythe tumbled after. On the edge of hearing, Marley heard the words, "Oh, bugger, not again," float by. Suddenly, the sound of wings filled the air, and the shadow of the king grew larger. "Time is past and time is present," said the disembodied corvid voice. "What have you done?" shouted Linton. "The time is now for yon poor peasant." The wings grew louder. "I'm going to play my part," said Marley, pulling the robe over his head, "to see the final end of what his life may have in store." "You can't," Linton said. "You don't know the part." Marley saw that the king had vanished. "Show him the last page of his story," chimed the raven. "Madam, I have been preparing for the last 7 years. No one could or shall play the avenging angel to Ebenezer Scrooge but myself," he said, and pulled the robe over his head. "Make him his own memento mori, a final act that's filled with fire and brimstone's awesome roar." "You can't show your face, right? You can't speak," she said, helping Marley into the costume. He mustn't know it's you, for if he does, then he'll never believe it, and the whole thing will fall apart, and trust me, you don't want to mess this up for this director." "Oh, why not?" asked Marley. Linton spoke in an urgent whisper while she put him into place on the revolve, the part that looked like the street. "Right. He once directed another intervention," she said, pulling the hood down over Marley's face almost completely. "It was for one of his own kin. He played in it himself and it didn't go well. He never forgave himself. So, if you mess this up..." "He'll never forgive me," said Marley. "No. He'll never forget you. And that's much, much worse, believe me," she said, and placed the scythe into Marley's hand. "Only this and nothing more!" The bird shrieked its final stanza. Linton stepped away, and Marley felt the shadow rise again at his back. Marley looked at the red velvet curtain and wondered what on earth had possessed him, and whether he had time to back out of it. The sound of the bird's wings grew louder, transforming themselves into something like the sound of applause. "Show time," came the voice of the unrevenged king, and the curtain began to rise.